The 40-20 rule. This was a topic that Knicks fans wanted me to address. The old Phil Jackson rears his ugly head again. 3 teams right now have crossed that threshold, winning 40 games before they lose 20. You have the Spurs, the Thunder, the Detroit Pistons. Where are you on this theory? The Knicks are 37-22. You know, they didn't count the NBA Cup final because it doesn't count. So if you add that, they're 38. But what do you think about this theory and as it relates to the Knicks, man, the 40-20 rule?
Yeah, I think it's a back of the envelope math kind of thing, right? And like it's got the ring of truth because, I mean, at the risk of sounding very simple, like if you win 40 games before you lose 20 games, you're a pretty good team, and pretty good teams tend to win the championship, right? Like, right. Yeah, you know, 39-21 doesn't mean you're trash. 41-18 doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to host a parade. So I think that, you know, you don't necessarily control when the lulls in your season come, and you don't control the injury situations. Obviously, you know, teams like, I think it was the 23 Nuggets, like that, they were not a 40-20 team, but they win the championship. The Bucks in 21, obviously 21. That was a lockout, not the lockout season, the COVID season, but like, you know, there are examples, there are counter examples. And I think the wild outliers are, you know, whatever, like the 95 Rockets, where it's like that was a team that was really kind of like half speed throughout the first half of the season and then caught fire. And that's less likely to happen, I think, now. But generally speaking, you put yourself in a position where you are a top 2, top 3 seed. You can have, you know, host at least one playoff series. You've got the ability to be a top 3, top 4 offense and above average defense. Hopefully by the end of the season, you're flirting with top 10. Those are the sort of marks that I look at more than 40-20. But it is notable. I think it's interesting to look at and say, well, who qualifies for that this year? And there's 3 teams, and those 3 teams, I think we can all agree, are legitimate championship contenders. Yeah. But I wouldn't just draw a line under them and say everybody besides them hit the bricks. I think that over the course, especially, I mean, the thing that I keep coming back to, and it sounds silly maybe, but like, this time last year, or even heading into the playoffs last year, I was ready to draw a line through the Knicks and just say, well, if they hit Boston, they're done.
Yeah.
And like there was, I found no reason to believe that the Knicks could beat the Celtics 4 times in a 7-game series. And then, you know, weird stuff happens. You know, that you play the games on the court for a reason. So I think you put yourself in position to be one of those top 5, 6 teams in the league. Top 5 offense, top 10 caliber defense, and then you'll let the chips fall where they may. Matchups are going to be more dependent than anything else. And, you know, if you wind up with a 39-22 or a 37-22 team that goes that far, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, and, you know, shout out to my guy, Law Murray, does great work, and he wrote this article. And he says, of the 79 champions in NBA history, only 17 won the title after failing to win 40 before they lost 20.
Yeah, it's real.
21.5%. He says only 4 teams in the three-point line era since 1979 have won the chip without being a 40 before 20 contender, which is 8.7%. And he says, and the 18 of the last 19 champions have cleared 40 before 20, exception, as you said, the 2021 Bucks, and even the Bucks had to beat the 40 before 20 team in the finals in the Phoenix Suns. So I'm with you, man. Like, obviously it speaks to the fact that those teams are very good teams, especially by their record. Probably on both ends of the ball. However, where I would push back is that I just don't see in this era of parity that we're in right now, I don't see any dynasties to be afraid of, Dan. And you know, I'm watching this. Look, they went 0-3 against the Pistons in, you know, convincing fashion. Give credit where credit is due. They are playing great, and I hope JB Bickerstaff's win Coach of the Year. They've been great. I still think the Pistons have flaws when it comes to the playoffs, in that if you cut off or slow down Cade, and he's not efficient, and they don't have the 3-point firepower, I think they can be beat. Same thing on the West. Like, I don't see the world beater team that it cannot be beat in this playoff, where if the Knicks get their act together, I still put them up there with the rest of the pack as having a chance to win this thing. Record be damned.
Yeah, I think that's goes back to that sort of general take that I had on the Knicks, you know, when we first talked about where they're at the 60-game mark. Like, it wouldn't shock me to see them be able to beat any of these teams in a 7-game series. I think you're right. There's no, like, you know, hard and fast, no doubt about it, 800-pound gorilla in the league that's like you just can't imagine. I think the healthy version of Oklahoma City is probably as close to that as you get.
Sure.
We also haven't seen the healthy version of Oklahoma City not once all season, right? Like I think they've lost something like 300 plus player games to injury this season. I think only maybe 2 or 3 other teams have been that injured, and they're still 45-15. So like the idea of fully healthy Thunder, I think would still be the best team there. But we saw, the Pistons looking elite, and then the Spurs go and they kind of fold them up. We've seen the Spurs look fantastic, and then, the Knicks beat them in the NBA Cup final, right? We've seen, all of these teams have their flaws. I think you're right to point out with Detroit, it's the lack of shooting that leaves people to be to have some questions about whether you can score enough in the half court in a 7-game series to beat a really good opponent. And it might not even be what might not even be the Knicks at that point. You're talking about like the sort of rock, paper, scissors at the top of the East. Like this version of Cleveland with Harden could be a real problem for multiple teams that are trying to figure out how to deal with their ball handling. There's the big what is going to happen with Jason Tatum, but the Celtics being as good as they've been this season without him and finding ways to be elite on both ends of the ball, they could pose a significant problem for a favorite in a series. I think styles make fights, matchups tend to determine playoff series, and you need to have the guys that can be able to go and get it at the end of the game. I think the Knicks and Knicks fans can feel pretty confident in the guy that they've got to do that, but it's really going to depend on, I think, seeding and matchups and who's healthy at the right time.